alongside Andy Brickley. We will take a deep dive into the 7-2 Boston Bruins as they get set to face off against the St. Louis Blues tonight. Their next road game after that will be in Dallas against the Stars. Then the Bees will be back home for 3 straight at TD Garden. We'll look ahead to the Blues. We will take a look around the NHL and hit on some storylines as well. But, Brick, I'm thinking episode 11. There's no 11s hanging in the rafters. There is a Trent Frederick 11. There's a PJ Axelson 11. And actually, I'm going to go outside hockey for a second, because if I don't mention this name, our game producer, Brian Zaccello, is going to throw a fit. So Drew Bledsoe, number 11, is what comes to mind to me.
Well, you can go there all you want. I'm going to keep it to hockey, right? But, yeah, it's 11, right? It reminds me of that Cheers episode, right, when they had the raffle and they were picking numbers out. Remember?
Yeah.
99, 66, 99, or whatever. And then Woody, they did it again, and Woody pulled out 11. He goes, "Here we go again."
Well, I was thinking, I'm going to run out of numbers eventually, once we get – actually, I did look it up because I wasn't sure. Do you know the highest number worn by a Bruins player in history? Because I didn't know this. I don't know if you know this or
not. What did Brian Lawton wear? I know when he first came in the league, he wore 98, and he took some heat for that. But he played briefly in Boston. I was wondering if he was still in the 90s at that point.
Yeah, it was.
Well, Pasta's 88, so it's somebody higher than 88, I assume.
It is, and
and I know 91's playing this year, right?
Yeah,
Zadorov.
91's playing this year. It's actually Vinny Lettieri wore 95.
Oh, okay, I wouldn't have got that.
Brief time, right? Exactly, and that's why I didn't. I
and
didn't want to stick too long over it.
And by the way, what number did PJ Axelson wear?
He was 11.
That'll be the PJ Axelson episode.
There you go. We got the PJ.
Part of the Bruins franchise.
That's right.
Yes.
He spent some time with Fabian Lysell over there as well, as he continues to work overseas for the Bees now. All right, Brick, we'll look ahead to the Blues, but we got to look back. That game against the Senators, a 3-2 loss in overtime, a game in which the Bruins had a 2-1 lead. And, it's the third period again for the Bees. And this time it was a historic third period in a bad way. No shots on goal. Brick, 15:53 mark of the second period, David Pastrnak registered a shot on goal. Linus Ullmark didn't see another shot on goal until 11 seconds into overtime when Elias Lindholm had that opportunity. That was a sight to behold. It really was. I guess I'll just start by saying, what was your takeaway from the game overall, and then that third period when they couldn't break through?
Well, even the 2 goals they scored in 15 seconds apart, that little sequence or that stretch of play was good, but for most of the game, their execution in terms of, tape-to-tape passes, that alone, just focus on that alone. It wasn't where it needs to be in order to be a possession team, to make plays, to create opportunities for yourself. Their execution was not good relative to the way they played the game prior. The prior game against Calgary, the execution was really good. And you play fast when you're able to do that. And this team is capable of playing like that. And when they don't, you're playing too much defense. You're trying to get the puck back too often. You're not generating offensive zone time. You're certainly not getting pucks to the net, which is what we saw in the third period. So, outside of that stretch where they had the 2 goals, most of the game was that way, Adam. But if you want to focus on the third period, and let's do that, this team, and it's hard to believe because I think they're a good hockey team. I think they're a playoff team, and I think they eventually will play like that. And we'll discuss why they're not playing like that. But the third period is a culmination of their lack of confidence, not just the X's and O's of being able to execute plays in all 3 zones and work yourself up the ice from the defensive zone through center into the offensive end. But their lack of confidence and the doubt that they have in their game right now, I think that's their biggest problem. And I think some of their top players are suffering from that. And when they're suffering, now you're disconnected as a team. And that is not a good formula. So very simply put, Adam, not until the top offensive guys start playing their game, their A game, and pulling the rest of the team with them, they're going to be and struggle to be a 500 team. That has to happen, whether it's the third period or the drop of the puck to start the game. That needs to change.
Yeah, and there are a lot of numbers. I mean, I obviously I could go through a laundry list of numbers when it comes to this team in terms of the offense, the 5-on-5 offense. They're 29th in high danger chances for 5-on-5, 26th in 5-on-5 goals. And a lot of that speaks to the fact that they're not playing a lot of 5-on-5 hockey early on this season because of the fact that they're in the penalty box, because of the fact that, the power play, while they've been on the power play more than anybody in the league, they haven't been able to capitalize on their power play opportunities as well. They're 31st in the league, 12.5%, Brick. And you talk about all the talent that they have on the ice. I mean, not being able to convert on the power play has been a huge reason why, the offense has struggled as well, you would have to say.
Yeah, of course. It affects the numbers and the goal output, but it also affects your mentality and your confidence when you play 5-on-5. Even if you don't score on your power play, but you generate chances, you generate momentum, you generate rhythm to your offense. It carries over to 5-on-5, and everybody knows on that bench when that power play is up and you don't score. But if you generated those things, that next lineup is going to continue and it's going to carry and it's going to snowball in a positive direction. That's not happening with their power play either. There are times when it looks good. They all look like on the same page. They generate quality scoring chances. They may score a power play goal. What do they got? 2 in their last 30 chances or something like that. 2
for their last 26.
Yeah, there you go. And again, that's where you have to say to the top guys, you need to deliver here. Whether it's McAvoy at the top of the umbrella or it's Pasternak finding his shot and scoring power play goals. I mean, this goes back to the midpoint of last year, Adam. If you really want to dial it back, where the power play has really not been what it needs to be, and it really makes you scratch your head and say, all right, what are we going to do? Where does Marchand best support or impact the power play? It's usually in and around the net, down by the goal line, not on the elbow. He can play the elbow, but it's really not his best strength. Do they have a real bumper player now that Bergeron's been gone? They really haven't. I know Coyle's been there. I know Lindholm has been there at times. Zaka at times, but they don't use enough of that position in the offensive zone, and it allows penalty killers to be aggressive on the elbows and aggressive down by the net and be able to front the top of the umbrella if you don't use the middle of the offensive zone, if you don't use that bumper, whether it's for possession or to create 2-on-1s and scoring opportunities from that part of the ice to the net. So it's a work in progress. I hate using that phrase because we've been saying it for too long, but it certainly cripples your offense when your power play is as fruitless as the Bruins power play has been this year.
Such a contrast, Brick, watching Ottawa's power play, right? And we talked about it. They were 4th in the league coming into the game on Saturday. Now, they hadn't been able to convert as much on the road, but they were able to get a power play goal at the end of the period to give themselves a 1-0 lead at the end of one period of play. But it was such a contrast watching them move the puck. And, the one thing that I do want to ask you about, and I know it's a part of today's game, the delayed entry. There was one point in particular. I know the Bruins use this and other teams use this as well. But the delayed entry, and I saw Charlie McAvoy, skating up the ice, didn't really have much traffic in front of him, but at center ice turned around and passed it back to whoever the forward was coming up the ice. And it seemed like it was almost just forced, right? It was just like, oh, you know what? This is a situation. I have to do that. Do you see that at times where they're sort of thinking that's the right move versus instinctually seeing what's in front of them?
Yeah, obviously, and I've mentioned this in the past. I'm a fan of having multiple ways of getting back into the offensive zone when you're on the power play, and the delay is very effective. Most teams, if not all teams, use it, and they use it well, and it's difficult to defend. But if that lead guy with the 2 trailers behind him has a chance to carry it himself across the blue line, you can play 3-on-2 coming across that blue line, even 3-on-3, because you have the help coming with speed. So once you gain that line, now you can just lay it in an area where you're going to get it back because you have guys coming with playing with pace. And I think they need to add some more of that. But again, it's the decision maker of the puck carrier. And I'll go to the doubt that's in Charlie McAvoy's game right now that shouldn't be there. He's too good. He's too talented. And he should be a guy that wants to take over in those situations. He has in the past. It's in his DNA, and he's struggling with it right now. So until that changes, until he has that confidence to know that this is the play for me to hang on to the puck, I don't need to use the delay here. And I think if they do more of that and get re-entries quicker, things will start to happen in a positive fashion. But it sounds simplistic, but I think it's spot on. I think it's accurate. Brad Marchand tries his hardest as the captain to make sure that room, that culture is where it needs to be. The believability is there. The camaraderie is there. All for one for all. But when you need help to do this, in order to turn this team into the team you think it should be, he needs help from the other leaders, And Marshy's not, he's made some blunders on the ice. He hasn't had his A game every game to the point where, he is setting the pace and setting the example. He's been struggling to find his game. It's gotten better. He competes like nobody else. His will to win is fabulous, but he needs to be almost not flawless, but better high percentage plays and affect the offensive game for Boston. But I think if he gets the help from the two guys that he needs the most help from, not only in the room but on the ice, and that's 88 and 73, until that happens, we're going to be talking about that one step forward, one step back. If those two players, along with Marchand, pull this team forward, I think you'll start to see some winning streaks.
This is the Hockey Hub, and you can watch or listen to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, or wherever else podcasts are found. You mentioned Brad Marchand, and after the Bruins 3-2 overtime loss, he was asked about the team's the state of the team right now, and talked a lot about the Bruins overthinking the game. Here's what the captain had to say.
Yeah, sometimes when you lack confidence or you're overthinking, the game is. Your execution is slow. We need to get out of our heads, stop thinking, just start playing. And like I said, it comes down to will and compete at this point. We need to start understanding we need to be better, and so that's part of it. Sometimes when you're thinking about where you're supposed to be, you're half a second late, and let's do something instead.
Yeah, Brick, I think you alluded to this already in terms of, having too much talent out on the ice. This Bruins team obviously is a very talented team, has a lot of potential, but at the beginning of the year too, and there's the other point, at the beginning of the year, everything's magnified, right? If you lose, 6 out of your first 10 games, you're 4-6, right? But if you lose 6 out of your 10 games during the season, and you have a good record to begin with, it doesn't stand out as much. Do you feel like the Bruins, in a way, are a lot of their problems are overthinking?
I do. And I think Brad is spot on. That's how you play slow. If you're overthinking and you're not just playing a reactionary sport and doing what comes natural and have good habits when you do that, the game is so much more fun and so much more faster and so much more quicker, and there's way more offensive opportunities to create. And I think that's what's hurting Boston right now. I mean, here's what I'm picturing. I played for Tommy McVie my first year pro, and he taught me how to be a professional hockey player. And sometimes the practices were so simplistic in order to drill it into our heads. And I'll use one example, and this is an offensive example. Most of what we had to learn was defense and how to play without the puck when you're a 20-year-old, trying to play NHL-level hockey. How do you play without the puck? That's always the biggest lesson to learn. But we used to do 2-on-1s, and he said it's the most important drill in hockey. We would do 2-on-1s at length every single day in practice, because if you get one in the game, you better get a scoring chance, a high-danger, quality scoring chance, and execute a 2-on-1. And that was frustrating watching that game the other day, because the Bruins had a couple back-to-back, and they don't even get a chance. They overpassed on a 3-on-1 where they don't even challenge Ullmark in the net. And to me, that's frustrating, and it talks about the overthinking of the game. Brad Marchand had that 2-on-1 with who? Charlie McAvoy, and you could tell where McAvoy's confidence level is, because he didn't drive off that far post. He didn't open up for a one-time. He even could have put brakes on, and stopped and been in position for a one-timer to make sure there was a passing lane. He had all kinds of options as the player without the puck, and he did none of them. And to me, that's a guy that's questioning his own game right now, and that should never happen with a talented player like Charlie.
Yeah, and as you were talking, David Pastrnak came to mind as well, and I think you were talking about one of those opportunities with Pasta in front of the net and trying to make a pass to Mark Kastelik. In that situation, you'd love to see Pasta shoot the puck. And then the last game against the Flames, he already had the 2 assists, right? And I think as you were going to break, he said, "Shoot the puck, Pasta."
He doesn't need to defer in that situation. I don't think defer is the right word. He just thought he had a play to be made. But, if he had 10 goals at this point in the season, he rips that. He doesn't even hesitate. He picks a spot and he beats the goaltender. And 5 in 15 or 16 games, whatever it is, that's below standard for him, and he should be hungry. All he needs is a multi-goal game. However they go in, he needs a multi-goal game to feel good about his game and say, all right, this is what I mean to this team, and I'm capable of this, and good things are going to happen, and I'm going to be part of this leadership group that's going to pull us out of this 500 style of hockey that we're playing, and I expect it to happen. I really do. I expect the top players to be the top players. They got a chance to do this quick little 2-game road trip against quality teams out west, teams you don't see a lot. So, and St. Louis will be here, Saturday? So you're gonna play them twice in the next 3 games. You've already played Dallas. You feel like you should show them a better brand of Bruins hockey than what you showed them in the loss, giving up power play goals far too easily in that one. So, there should be some motivation, but until they start having that believability, A, in themselves, and then B, in one another, we're going to be talking about this for a while, Adam.
Yeah, no question about that. And just to get back to, Pasta shoot the puck. He does lead the league in shots on goal. But again, there are opportunities that he's leaving on the table. But in terms of the team, Brick, they're 23rd in shots on goal per game. When they outshoot their opponent this year, Brick, they're 6-3. And you would think, all right, yeah, they have a winning record, but that's 7th best in the league. When they're outshot, they're 1-4-2, which is 31st in the National Hockey League. So some of those, some of the things we're talking about in terms of the stats, those are the ones that back up our conversation. In terms of the schedule too, Brick, I know we're getting to St. Louis a little bit coming up, but, an opportunity against the St. Louis team that's struggling a little bit, right? And coming off a couple of losses. And it kind of reminds me of where they were at going into the week where, they played the Flyers and then the Hurricanes, and they had the Flyers again in a back-to-back in Seattle. That you're looking at that and saying, all right, this is a Flyers team that's clearly inferior talent-wise to you. You got to take advantage of the schedule. They lost that first game, but they were able to win on Saturday. I kind of look at this stretch a little similarly, when you talk about what's ahead of you.
Yeah, and the script in that win at home against Philly, in Philly was the way they should start every game, right? I mean, it's get the puck deep, get it behind them, force them to play in their own zone, use the depth of the offensive zone, use the width, have the defensemen involved, anticipate that they're going to transfer the puck side to side. Everybody gets active, everybody's on the move, all 5 guys, and then attack the net. Don't stay on the perimeter, then attack the net. Get inside ice, get the pucks to the net, get inside the hash marks, get to the top of the blue paint. It's very simple, but it's highly effective against a team that's struggling themselves, struggling to find their game, and if they're spending time in their own zone, it just complicates things and it makes the burden that much more difficult, and they feel the pressure of not playing as well as they could play if you force them to play defense. So, the start in St. Louis will be key. The start in every game should be key, and then it becomes about sustainability. We've already talked about third periods and their inability to generate offense in the third period, their inability to drive offense from their power play. So starts become critical. And if you have that shot first mentality, what you say, 6-3 they are when they outshoot, then why
Yes.
not? Why not apply that theory? Outshoot your opponent and don't overplay. Don't overpass, and make sure that if you're a defenseman, you're either moving laterally a step to get a lane, or you're pinching down the wall with anticipation of a good third high guy to protect for you. And I always talk about the defense. The center position helping the defense. The way the Bruins play. And that can be in all 3 zones. So I like the fact that they have a little bit more strength down the middle with the way they've reconfigured their lines. With Zacha back in the middle, with Lindholm in the middle, with Coyle in the middle, and Kostelic in the middle. I like that. The question is, where does a guy like Matty Poitras fit in? And is Morgan Geekie going to get back in the lineup and start playing like he did the way he did last year? Is Trent Frederick going to elevate his game? Because that bottom 6 needs to be, the third and fourth lines have to be really good most nights. I'm talking about the top guys all the time. Pull this team forward, pull it forward. But you got to look at the bottom 6. They don't have to play the game the same way the top skilled guys do. They should play like that fourth line had played through the first 10 games with that. Get the puck deep, forecheck. You try to add sandpaper. You try to add physicality. You wanted to wear teams down. Well, let's see it. Start playing that way if you're in the bottom 6 role.
For more on the Bruins and the biggest trending news in sports, check out Boston Has Entered the Chat, hosted by George Bellecci and Travis Thomas. Available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and wherever else podcasts are found. So, Brick, you talk about the reconfigured lines. Jim Montgomery said that, yeah, you know what? Like I tried to keep some guys together and it wasn't working, right? And he was talking about Elias Lindholm and David Pastrnak. He ended up reuniting Pavel Zacha and David Pastrnak. And you talk about the lines, and the one thing that comes to mind is what you had said during one of the broadcasts. Forgive me, I can't remember which one. Maybe it was the Flames, because you had the reconfigured lines at that point, and you said it's not so much about the line; it's about keeping duos together. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, center right wing or center left wing is usually, you can keep pairs together. If you wanted Janny Neely together or Oates Neely together or Oates Hull together, you could have a bit of a revolving door as the third player on that line and still get really good results. But I think a strong center wing combination that stays together for the longevity of a season, not every game, but pretty close to it, I think really gives you the best chance to get the best results that you're looking for in terms of production. And that's something that I believe in. And if you can find pairs on on all your lines, but certainly on your top two. Coming into this year, Adam, the question was, you lost a couple of pretty good hockey players, and you lost a pretty good level of playing with pace when you talk about DeBrusk and Heinen leaving. Those guys were good hockey players. And at times, Heinen had to play in the top six, and certainly Jake was a top six player. And I think coming into the season, did the Bruins have a sixth top player? And they've tried numerous times to find that sixth player, somebody that can play in that top six and play consistently and not have bad games, or if he doesn't have his A game, make sure your B- game is still good enough to be inside the top six. And they haven't had that, and it's forced a lot of the blender situations at times for the coaching staff to try to find what's going to work, what's going to ignite the offense. And it just hasn't worked. They're trying Tyler Johnson in there. He didn't have a strong game last time out. You were hoping maybe he would fit into that situation. So the search continues, but you knew coming into the season that was going to be an issue. So again, I talk about the top guys. Make sure you have good twosomes playing together. And maybe that's Zacha and Pastrnak, and then maybe it's Lindholm and Marchand. Maybe that's something that they're going to build off, and maybe that's something that will help pull them into a bit of a more offensive position and score some more goals and improve their power play. But until that happens, and until the bottom guys that had good years last year start to play into their level, and that's the head coach's responsibility, and that's his challenge right now. How do I get these guys to play to the level that they played last year, or exceed it for that matter? You don't want those career years to just be one-offs. You want to at least get close to that level of play in order to be a far more effective team. And as individual players, Adam, that's what you should be challenging yourself to do.
Yeah, you talk about Trent Frederick, Morgan Geekie, who's been a healthy scratch, obviously coming off a career year as well.
Yeah, even Charlie Coyle. He started the year slow, but now he's starting to play. He's starting to impact the game. I had less worry about him because a veteran guy, and I know the makeup of the player and what drives him, and I expected him to be a more impactful player, and he has, but he still has a way to go. But you're right. You mentioned a couple of guys. Brazeau's trying to prove himself as an NHL guy. I already mentioned Poitras. What is he? You've already sent Max Jones down to the minors. He's had a hard time finding his game in a Bruins uniform with the opportunities that he's had. So, it's like a perfect storm in a negative fashion right now for Boston in terms of individual play, and it is showing up in the record that they're .500. We haven't even mentioned the goalies. They've been good. Goaltending's been good, and the Bruins usually...
that's what happens. That's what's happened in these podcasts, Rick, right? Because we've talked, unfortunately, about the Bruins' struggles, and we go through a number of different topics, and we don't touch on the goalies because the goalies have done their job for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've given you an opportunity most nights to win a hockey game, and that's what you want from your goaltenders. Sometimes you hope he steals one for you, and maybe that's coming. Maybe that's going to happen. They've kept their team in it most nights, and they make the timely stops, and that's what you're looking for. I try to be as simple to my approach as I can, And when you look at the most important players in the lineup, Adam, they're the guys that play the most, right? I mean, it's that simple. Guys that play over 20 minutes a night need to impact the game more than they are right now. It's that simple. So that puts Lindholm in there on the, Hampus, as well as, the guys that we've already talked about. If Zadorov wants to be, front and center and I want to be in every situation, I want to play with McAvoy and I have the ability to make big hits and join the rush and get involved offense, well, then play like that. And don't make mistakes at the wrong time, and don't take shortcuts, and don't swing the wrong way when you're supposed to keep the play in front of you, and don't be late to coverage. A lot of the goals we've seen the Bruins give up this year, there's been players in the frame of the replay, within reach, within distance of the player that's scoring the goal, yet there's not that elimination. They don't have that full coverage, and that's something that needs to improve too. We talk about the offense, and the offense can clear up a lot of the defensive mistakes if you're outscoring your mistakes. But I always believe that the Bruins were goaltending, team defense, special teams, and I think the team defense has improved. I think their 5-on-5 game has improved. I agree with the coaching staff that they said that there's some good trends happening there, but their special teams are really letting them down in both directions, especially with the timeliness of the power play goals they give up. But their offense, when they can extend leads, I mentioned those 2-2-on-1s almost within a couple of minutes of each other in a 2-1 game. So if your power play is not going to extend your lead, then those 2-on-1s ought to certainly give you an opportunity, force the goalie to make a stop.
Toronto was almost a perfect microcosm of the season so far, Rick, right? Because they were in the penalty box a ton. They had a ton of power play opportunities. They played pretty well 5-on-5. Their goaltending was solid. I mean, is that not the season in a nutshell so far?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, the lack of offense, the special teams, the penalty killing, giving up goals when you needed a stop, the parade to the penalty box, and just the lack of will to win in terms of we're going to overcome our shortcomings, our deficits, because we're going to come together as a team and the leaders are going to lead and we're going to find a way as a group of 20 to win this hockey game. And there's something missing there as far as that connection that we've been so fortunate to have for, how many years? It's going on, over a decade, right?
Yeah, no question about that. No question. All right. Want the latest on the Patriots and the NFL, then check out Nesson's football podcast, Foxborough Rush, hosted by George Bellecci and Travis Thomas, available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and wherever else podcasts are found. Yeah, the Patriots got a big win on Sunday in Chicago, Brick. How about that?
I enjoyed
2 out of the last 3 games, they got wins. Yeah, so they have something positive to talk about on Foxborough Rush. Hasn't been a lot of positive talk on some of these podcasts lately that we've been rolling out. But, in terms of the Bruins, the one thing that I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, Brick, they are in playoff position right now. And you always look at Thanksgiving as that marker, right? There's 8 games left till Thanksgiving. Since 05-06, salary cap instituted, over 75% of the teams who are in playoff position at Thanksgiving make the playoffs. 13 out of 16 teams who were in playoff position at Thanksgiving made the playoffs, including 7 out of 8 in the Eastern Conference. So you got to get to Thanksgiving, Brick. That's your goal.
Yeah, the 7-7-2 record is the good news. That's the good news.
Right.
We do this podcast, and I'd love to come on here and talk about the virtues of the Boston Bruins, the makeup of the team, and why they're so good, and how much you enjoy watching them play. Yet the eyeball test suggests something totally different, totally the opposite. Yet they're a 500 club, 7-7-2. That's the good news, because you feel like they have so much room to grow and so much room to come together and play as a group, and so much more effective in terms of how they play together and generate offense and dominate in their defensive zone and their hybrid defense and keep plays to the outside with quality goaltending. It feels like it's all there. Just the ingredients are there. Now you gotta bake it into place, and I think they're capable of it. It's just a matter of when's it going to happen and when are they going to start believing in themselves that they can make it happen, because I feel like from a distance, that's what it looks like.
That's why you're the best in the biz, Brick, because you used the Thanksgiving analogy right there, a pun, if you will, with the ingredients in baking. And I know Thanksgiving is one of your favorite holidays because every time somebody over the last week or so has brought up Christmas or holiday music, you had said, do not overlook Thanksgiving.
Well, when you come from a big family, having a meal together of that size and that magnitude, and the sacrifice of my mother and my sisters putting together such a huge meal, and I was lucky enough, if you want to call it this, to grow up in a house where the girls did all the work and we got to play, the boys. So you'd go to a football game or you'd play a tackle or a tag football game before the meal, and then you'd come in and everything was all set up, but it was great. It was great camaraderie, great family, great togetherness, great thankfulness, I guess, with Thanksgiving, right? To be together, and that's why I love that holiday. A lot of times around Christmas, as you get older, you get a little separated. You don't get together. There's other families involved. You try to go visit your new family if you're married or you're dating or whatever. Right. It gets a little tougher. Thanksgiving seems to be more about family of origin to me, so that's why I like it so much.
Yeah, and you mentioned thankfulness and togetherness. Well, I think Jeremy Swayman and Linus Ullmark are pretty thankful to be a 1-2 punch over 3 seasons with the Boston Bruins. Of course, big storyline going into Saturday night, Brick, was Linus Ullmark's return to Boston, and the big question was, would there be a hug? Would there be something during warmups? And as it turns out, there was a hug and there was a picture of the two of them taken together on the ice before the game. And there they are, brothers for life. And so Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman reunited. And of course, there was a video tribute as well to Ullmark during the first commercial break in the first period. And Ullmark ends up leaving Boston a winner. He talked about that and what it was like to return.
I meant a lot. It's always it's not something that I'm striving for, obviously, but it's something that you can look back at and saying, yeah, you've made enough of an impact in this community and this organization as well for them to give you, show them gratitude towards you as a player. And this, like I said, I'm never going to take it for granted. I'm very happy for it and humble for it as well.
You talked earlier in the week about being an emotional hockey player, an emotional person at times. Where did your emotions rank here from start to finish?
That is a very good question. There was certainly a lot. Not going to lie, there was a lot. Especially during warm-ups. I had goosebumps going out there and hearing the crowd again. And also when just getting the win in this barn is not easy, and just to kind of, it's something that you dream of, especially when you're coming in here as opponents as well, and you really want to bring your A game. You want to do that, and we haven't really done that lately, but I thought that today we really showed what kind of a team we are.
All right, so Linus Ullmark on his return to Boston, hoping the win is a springboard for the Senators to continue their season. Brick, I was thinking about what was your favorite. Do you have a favorite return to Boston, or not necessarily favorite, or maybe a memorable return to Boston for a former Bruin?
I don't know if I really have that in my memory bank, Adam, to be honest with you.
I remember Joe Thornton coming back.
I remember that too. I don't know. There may have been one that I should remember that was just off the charts in terms of a return of a significant player.
Right.
But no, nothing really stands out. And you think about through the years. I remember when Matt Sundin was playing for Toronto, and Toronto wasn't going to make the playoffs. And Sundin was such a great player and the leader and the captain and all that. And they were asking him, can we trade you? I think he had a no trade. Can we trade you? So we can build for our future, etc. And he didn't want to go. He didn't want to go. Well, he went at some point. And he came back the following year as a Vancouver Canuck, I think, and. It was an emotional night for a guy that was a legend in Toronto, and he said he didn't play very well, but it went to a shootout, and he scored the shootout winner. So
right.
There are plenty of examples like that, but nothing that jumps out at me.
What about you playing against your former teams over the years?
Well, I never came back and played against the Bruins after I left Boston. I didn't play many more NHL games after that 92 season, so I didn't have that opportunity. But certainly coming from New Jersey and what Jersey meant to me, because we were the first team to make the playoffs that 87-88 season, go all the way to the conference final, lose to Boston in Game 7, the growth of the young players, how close we were, what we had to do to get into the postseason, that it was very traumatic and very emotional when I wasn't protected and I came to Boston in the waiver draft. So I was coming home. What a thrill! What an opportunity! Life changing as it turns out to come to Boston. But it was a little emotional that I was leaving what I thought was a really good situation. We were building something down there, and as it turns out, it did build to 3 Stanley Cups later on in New Jersey. But I remember playing against the Devils. Anytime I played against the Devils, there was a little extra,
Yeah.
Even I looked fast on the ice some nights playing against the Devils. But I had 3-1 against them one night. I was playing with Neely, and we were down. It was that unbelievable week where the game before we played the Canadiens and we were down 2-0. Late in the third period, Linsman took a penalty with 5 minutes to go. We're down 2-0. Not only do we kill it, Linsman comes out of the box, sets up Ray for a goal coming down the left side, make it 2-1. And people that were thinking of leaving after we got that penalty, they were kind of hanging around to see how this was going to end. Ray went 5-hole against Patrick Waugh, and then Neely scored shortly thereafter. Ray made a nice play to keep it in. He passed the puck behind the net to me, and I found Neely out front. All of a sudden, it's 2-2, thinking, all right, we're going to force this thing to overtime. And then shortly after the face-off, with just less than a minute to go, Glenn Wesley took a puck up the off wing. Craig Ludwig fell down, trying to cross over. And West went in and scored, made it 3-2. That was game over right there. We won in regulation after being down 2-0 with 5 minutes to go. So that was an unbelievable week, because then we played New Jersey, and we were down 4-1 after 2 periods. We might have got a late goal, like in the final minute of the second, to make it 4-2, and then we poured it on in the third and ended up winning. And it was a big night for me personally, so that was very rewarding. That one stands out clearly as one of my favorites, playing against the team that I used to play for.
All right, I want to go back down memory lane, because that's a lot of fun with you, because you have an incredible recall. It just amazes me how well you remember. So I'm going to ask you, since it's the Blues coming up, there's a game against the Blues in October 24th, 1991, a 6-5 win for the St. Louis Blues. Pretty wild game. 90 penalty minutes doled out. A number of different fighting majors. You had a 2-goal game, and just looking at that box score, I'm sure you have some memory of that.
Yeah, the whole game probably.
All right, there you go.
Well, 91-92 was a comeback year for me, Adam. Not to make this a lengthy story. The year before is when I had the myositis ossificans in my groin, and they took out a fist-sized piece of my adductor. It looked like my career was over. The growth was squeezing against my femoral artery. There was questions about, the health that I was going to have to deal with beyond that. Could I ever play hockey again? All that stuff. And that year, 91-92, the next year after I finally healed, it took a calendar year for me to heal. So the season before was kind of a wasted season. Even though I was playing, I wasn't playing to my capability, because I couldn't get there. I couldn't skate to the level I needed to skate to be an NHL good player. So 91-92 was a prove-it year for me. It was the end of my contract. We had a new coach. Rick Bowness had taken over. Milbury had moved on. And we went through something like 55 players that year. We had so many injuries and so much turnover and no consistency. It was a hard year to make the playoffs, and Bones had a huge challenge to somehow pull that team together and get it to believe, and whoever was in the lineup, we were going to compete and somehow find a way to win. And I had started the year in Maine because I didn't deserve to be in Boston based on the performance from the year before, and the Bruins started 1-3-1, I think, and they had to do something, so they reached down to the minor league team, and they invited me to practice, and was in Wilmington, and we went on this West Coast trip. Not a West Coast. We went on a road trip, and we started in the new San Jose team. They played in the Cow Palace in San Francisco. That's when I got a chance to play, and I originally started playing with Carpy. Oh, by the way, Carpy might have worn number 11 now that I think about it.
He did. Yeah, you're right.
And I started playing with Carpy and Stevie Leach. And then quickly it became Rosie Ruzicka and Stevie Leach and myself. And we were aligned going into that game in St. Louis. And we had had a good game, a good finish in San Jose. And now we're in St. Louis, and we were playing together, and it was just a back and forth, chance after chance at both directions. Both teams weren't playing great defense. They were generating offense, and you had Hull and Oates on the other side of the ice. You knew they were coming at you with some really good offensive skills. So, yeah, it was a fun night. I factored in all 5 goals. I had 2 and 3. It seemed like everything I touched, a good chance was happening, or I was getting the opportunity. I was rooming with a newly acquired Boston Bruin named Al Stewart. And that's a story unto itself, that road trip when we roomed together. But I think he fought 3 times. You mentioned the 90 minutes. I think he fought 3 times. Knuckles Nyland was on that team. I think Featherstone fought. I think Jay was on that team still. I think maybe not. But anyway, and St. Louis had a bunch of guys that were willing to drop the gloves, and they were looking to do that. But then it went back and forth, and their goalie made one more save than ours, and that was the difference in the game.
What was it like playing against Brett Hull?
Scary.
Yeah, that's a good way to sum it up, I guess.
No, I loved watching him play because he knew how to get open. You don't score 700 goals in this league and not know how to get open and get your shot away or reinvent yourself or add things each year you play in order to help you score goals in different ways. And, he just didn't – he wasn't a one-trick pony, an ultra-confident guy to the point where some guys didn't even – they felt uncomfortable playing with him because he demanded so much from you. I know talking to Craig Janney when he played with him after he left Boston, it was a lot different than when he was in a Bruins uniform because Hull was so demanding of him. And that's good. It makes players accountable, makes them better. And CJ had a great career. But, Hull would scare you with his release. His ability, his one-timer was just an absolute bomb, but his release, how quickly he got rid of it. I used to watch Bossy as a kid, and I'm saying, it's like he didn't even look, he didn't pick his spot. It was just all about the release, how quick he got it off before the goalie was set. And he talked about that, I didn't try to shoot, 6-hole. I didn't try to go over his block and under his armpit, I just got rid of it quick before the goalie was set while I was moving. And Hull did all of that, larger-than-life personality. I liked being in his company. I didn't like it so much in 19 when he and Keith Tkachuk were hanging around and St. Louis was beating the Bruins in Game 7. I didn't like it.
Didn't like that. Didn't like that
and they were loud and boisterous. But, I had such respect and admiration for watching that kid play. I thought he was dynamite.
Yeah, Tkachuk, by the way, that was a great trivia question that Judd Surratt had the other night about the penalty minutes and 30-goal seasons, 3 straight, and Brady Tkachuk, and then his dad, Keith Tkachuk. So
in the interest of full disclosure, Adam, Judd and I were talking before the game, and he was he's just confirming some things about Keith Tkachuk with me because I played with Chucky when he was just a kid in Winnipeg, and obviously familiar with all the local guys. And he was born in the Melrose Wakefield Hospital, so sometimes they say he's from Melrose. Well, he's not. He's not from Melrose, and I was trying to clear that up with Judd to make sure he understood how this thing all worked. So when he asked the trivia question, I didn't think it was my place to guess because I kind of had an idea who. So I waited for the graphic and I waited for the answer, and then I wanted to play off it because the era that I was fortunate to play in, not only were there tough guys who piled up tremendous amounts of penalty minutes, but they also scored a ton of goals. And we referenced those types of players, after the trivia question was answered.
Yeah, that was a good one. Brady Tkachuk following his dad's footsteps earlier. Matthew Tkachuk, too. I mean, both of those guys, impact player, really heart and soul of both of those teams, you'd have to say. But anyway, hey, Brick, that was a lot of fun as always. Always enjoy, talking about the Bruins, but also just your amazing recall. I can't say that enough. Like, your recall is just incredible. Like, another guy like that, Dennis Eckersley. Eck is the same thing. He'll recall games from the 70s, and Eck liked to party back in the day. And he always admits that. He's like, I don't know how I do it, man. I don't know how I remember. He remembers parties at George Brett's house. Like, it's It's just unbelievable. But you have that same gift, man. So kudos to you. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, and this is very unfair of me, but I'm sure Eck remembers Kirk Gibson.
Yeah, I think he does too. And to be fair, he actually sat down with him years ago in the stands at Fenway Park. They had a nice chat.
Yeah. Well, I was fortunate enough to when Eck moved to the South Shore, he was in my neighborhood, and the crossovers all the time with the Sox starting up in April, and him being at Nesson, and I'd see him at Dunkin' Donuts on his way into town, and Bruins going into the playoffs, and so really fortunate to be in his company. The amount of times that I was able to be in it, and how much I enjoyed, how much I loved baseball, and talking to him was just, I'm a sponge, baby. Tell me all the stories you got, because I'm listening.
Yeah, you are. You retain all of it, which is pretty incredible. All right. We'll wrap things up on the Hockey Hub podcast, episode number 11. Brick, thanks as always for coming on. Looking forward to, a bounce back for the Bruins, hopefully on this road trip beginning in St. Louis. So have a good trip, man.
Yep, coming home with 4 points. How's that sound?
Love it. And we will talk about it next week on the Hockey Hub podcast. We'll see you then.
All right, see you.